Today is a significant day. One, it is Deepam. It is the day in the year when a fire is lit atop Arunachala mountain, which is considered to be Lord Shiva himself. Anyone drawn to the path of knowledge would, I think, like being there around this holy mountain and the Ramana Maharshi ashram. I say would like being there as a caveat because it is not necessary that it benefits everyone. This may sound surprising, but Lakshmana Swami had said that if there is not sufficient Sattva, that person may not do well next to the mountain. May not. Yet I find that I have an optimistic view about this because I am reminded of two things. One is when Maharaj was having his satsang, a foreigner walked in, didn't like what he saw and left. And Maharaj replied to his audience, too late. The fact that he has come here and set foot in this space means that sooner or later the seed will sprout. Sooner or later the seed will sprout. My own experience of Arunachala, the first time I visited it, which was around the year 2000, I ran away because I could not handle the material dimension of the space, the crowd, the noise, the dirt. I was overwhelmed by it. And I swore that I'd never go back there. And I've been going back there now for 23 years. So our view is extremely limited about things. Extremely limited. If we remember this, that whatever our opinion about someone or something that happens to us is based on a very limited view, then there's an opening, a receptivity, that there's a larger force at play, something that my puny intellect cannot possibly comprehend, though it thinks it knows best. If we have this in our minds every time we find we are trying to win an argument or force our opinion on someone else, we will find that we are now witnessing life more and more. We are judging life less and less. We are judging people less and less. We are judging events that transpire in our lives less and less. And we are in the zone which our ancestors and rishis called Sakshi bhav, witness consciousness. And that is the fire of knowledge. It burns away illusion and delusion. But as Maharaj said, one has to be prepared because it will burn the entire house down. And are you prepared for it? What does that mean? All your cherished beliefs, all your finger pointing, will be burned to ash. The ego will not be able to play that game anymore. You did this to me. When this garbage is evicted from the thinking mind, this garbage of hatred, jealousy, pride, arrogance, resentments, ill will, the list goes on. When all this is evicted from the mind, it means that my thinking mind, which was obsessed with me and my story and my drama of life, and I must win. When that obsession goes, What is left? Which Maharaj pointed to relentlessly, abiding in the I am, abiding in your being. Now, imagine trying to abide in your being as a sadhana, but your mind is full of crap. The churn is going on all the time in your mind. But no, the sadhana is I must abide in my being. Whereas what the teachings do, if followed, is they clear out the garbage of the thinking mind. So you find you are no longer repeating these patterns of thinking like you were before. And because the thinking mind is disengaged, abiding in being is natural. And that abiding in being means honoring whatever shows up in front of you. It could be a person you have a history with. A history of action-reaction. आगे आ जाओ. It could be a moment that brings forth news which is not good. But this teaching brings about a total acceptance of what is. So if the person who has been pushing my buttons all the time comes before me, while the past conditioning is there, I now see that we all have some good points and some bad points. I can see that this person in front of me is playing out their script the way God designed it. It's really nothing to do with me, though it appears that way. It appears that way. And I find when that person leaves my space, no matter the pain they have caused me, I truly wish them well. Because I know we all have been shaped by our conditioning, our genetics, our nature, over which no one had any control. This is called seeing God in everyone. It's nothing esoteric. That is why Maharaj would say, understanding is all, full stop. Understanding is all. That is the fire of knowledge. That is the sun. The sun is above the pairs of opposites, so to speak. It does not choose whom to shine its light on. You could be anyone. That light is the light of being. Someone gifted me this book and I found two passages quite interesting. This is by Arthur Osborne, and it's called Ramana Maharshi and the Path of Self-Knowledge. So there was a young boy called Humphreys who was gifted with enormous powers. Even before he met Bhagwan. And then Bhagwan said, please get off all this. And he had a very deep understanding. He met Bhagwan a few times and then went his way. So he had written a synopsis of the teaching, which it says here, a synopsis that he sent to a friend in English was published later in the International Psychic Gazette and remains an excellent presentation of the teaching. And this passage, from this point begins the work of the practice of this mental comprehension, and all it amounts to is the breaking of a habit. The breaking of a habit, which basically means the past conditioning. One has to cease calling things things and must call them God. And instead of thinking them to be things, must know them to be God. Instead of imagining existence to be the only thing possible, one must realize that this existence is only the creation of the mind. So what happens when we stop calling things things? This is precisely it. So far, I have labeled everyone in my life as per the roles they play. Family, stranger, beggar, colleague, the ones I love a lot, the ones I love a little less, and the ones I love the least. I am calling things things. But when I start seeing that the same consciousness animates the beggar who comes up to me, as well as my parent, then a shift happens. When I find I am as receptive to a person I've just met as I am to a very close friend, then a shift happens. That shift is the shift from my relationship with people to my relationship with God. Because I am now seeing the one behind the many. When I have the courage to accept that the person who has troubled me the most in my life is created by the force that created me, then I know that the teachings have been taken to heart. The rest is all theory. Asking people which states of samadhi they have experienced, how many hours of sadhana they do in a day. But when by and by, my relationship with people, my relationship with what happens to me in my life, and my relationship with myself is one of a deep acceptance and peace, then I know that represents my relationship with God. And in that process, the power of satsang is underestimated. You see, satsang, which is a gathering of truth, is a bit different from other gatherings, like social gatherings, dinners, meetings. Because the gathering is for the truth, not something that adds to me, not something that helps me navigate life socially, financially, whatever it may be. Now all that is kept aside. Something has pulled someone to satsang. Satsang can be any form. One is this kind of a form. Satsang can be bhajan, kirtan, whatever it may be. Singing the praise of God. The value is that our conditioning is so hardwired from childhood. So hardwired that, as my teacher would say, the ego needs a constant hammering in order to break the shell. Constant. Pat, 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 pat. That is why when he was asked, someone said, I know everything you say, yet I find myself coming again and again and again. Does it mean I haven't understood? And he said, no. It is just like your favorite song. You want to listen to it again and again and again. That's it. That happens two ways. One is physically, and the other is that satsang which happens internally. Which means if there is a remembrance of the teachings, that is satsang. If I see events in my life through this lens now, that is satsang, because I am keeping the company of truth. There was this famous story of this man who visited Bhagwan for 100 days and felt he was not benefiting. Let me see if I can find it. For 100 days he stayed away, and then the thought came to him, How am I better for not seeing Bhagwan? So he went. Bhagwan met him at the entrance to Skandashram and greeted him with this question: how are you better for not visiting me? He then spoke to him of the importance and potency of Satsang, even though the disciple did not perceive the effect it was having on him or see any improvement in himself. Bhagwan compared it to a mother feeding her child during its sleep at night, so that next day the child thinks it took no food, although she knows it did. And in fact, the food sustains it. Like I said, we don't know. We don't know. You are too cramped up there. आगे आ जाओ, Siddhant. So when we start trusting when things go wrong in our life that, we don't know. We just don't know. Then we are just dealing with the situation at hand without the mind spinning its stories. Someone does something repeatedly, I don't know. It is what it is. It is what it is. Not what it should be, not what it could be, not what it should have been or could have been. Otherwise, you'll find that the years are ticking by and you're still living in the shoulds and coulds and woulds, and not realizing that there's lesser time on this planet for you. That happens. And then till the last days, you'll be carrying this dialogue of should, could, and would. If I had done that, if they had done that, that is the mantra. Might as well give up that game now, so that at least you are available for yourself for the rest of your life. Today is also, I am reminded of the anniversary of the terror attacks in Mumbai, which happened in 2008, I think, 2008. And I know two people, a father and his daughter, who lost their lives in that attack. They were from America. They were part of a spiritual group who were visiting Mumbai at the time and whose talks we had helped organize. The master of that group himself is no more now, Master Charles Cannon. We knew him very well. Alan was the vice president of Synchronicity. And he made a few trips to Mumbai. He loved India. The joy he would get having pani puri and bhel puri on the streets was unparalleled. So Alan would come to my office and work from there in the day. and then go about organizing things for his group and his master and all that. So whenever I would have a tea break, I would call him. I would send for him and he would come and have chai with me in the office. Happened about 2-3 times a day, 2 times a day at least. Alan was with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi before coming to synchronicity. And he was a Vedic astrologer. He had studied Vedic astrology very deeply. People used to consult him. And I remember that was the time I had written an essay for my Guru's 90th birthday. I wrote it for myself, what I thought was the core of the teaching. And then I sent it to a magazine, a spiritual magazine called Life Positive. I sent it to the editor because I knew her. I knew she wasn't very fond of Ramesh's teachings, but that didn't stop me. And I sent it with the hope that maybe she will like it and she will carry it in the magazine. And that is precisely what happened. She called me up, Suma called me up, said, "Great article, we are carrying it." So I presented that magazine to my teacher. And he said that this is very well written, but why don't you expand a bit on it and make a small book of it? That is how my first book came out. Now, while this was happening, Alan asked me for my birth details. So I gave it. And he went to his laptop, did tick, 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 came back in half an hour, and he said, "You know what? You will be writing many books." And I laughed. I said, "Alan, you're way off the mark." Now, 15 years later, he was right. So be careful when you laugh. And Alan, once we were walking, I think, somewhere in Churchgate, and he said, "You know, Gautam, my wish is to die in India. My wish is to die in India." And he got his wish. In a brutal way. In a brutal way. And his daughter was next to him. 15 years old, maybe, Naomi. Instant death. Hand of destiny. Then, some months later, we had published this called Nan Umbriger. Nan Umbriger's story is that her son was a very famous jockey. He was winning all the races, and he was, I think, one short of a win when he fell from his horse and died. And then through a series of events, Carl, who was now in the spirit realm, started communicating with his mother, Nan, and told Nan that I am now with a guru. And she said, "Guru? We are Parsis. What guru? Guru is all this." He said, "I am with the guru, Meher Baba." So Nan wrote a book called Sounds of Silence on this journey of hers from an absolutely clueless Parsi mother to this realm. Now Nan sent me a message maybe 3 months after Alan and Naomi passed on. 3-4 months, I would say. And in that, Alan says to me that I don't want to get into the hows and whys and what happened. I just want to let you know there was no pain and suffering. And there's the rest of the letter, which I am producing in my next book. So we don't know. Now, George, this is your domain, since you have experience with being able to communicate with other realms. But this is the beauty of life. You know, sometimes someone would ask Ramesh, because he was this quintessential Advaita master, and he was not into discussing past lives, future lives, other realms. He felt it was all conceptual and best to deal with this life and our lot in this life. Yet, at the same time, someone else asked him if he believed in all this, and his answer was, if consciousness is all there is, anything is possible. So you see, the teacher is not going to be dogmatic and rigid. What arises spontaneously arises, and more importantly, the teacher or guru is not addressing the question, but rather the questioner. What is meant to come for that person comes. But it was absolutely beautiful, this message, the sharing which came. And how it works, because through Nan's works, she introduced her master Meher Baba to thousands of people. Now, mind you, she received bouquets as well as brickbats. Oh, you should not indulge in these things and all that stuff. But this lady, she followed her guidance and did what she felt was right. She was not a fool. So she diligently, over, I think, 2 decades, did what she could. Amazing service. And Naomi was such a quiet girl. She was the only child in the group, so everyone's attention was on her. But when she would come here, she would not open her mouth. She would sit quietly. Radiant face. I remember her face was so radiant, so beautiful. And their master, Charles Cannon, revered my mother. So they really looked up to my mother. And before leaving this place, Naomi asked my mother, touched her feet and said, "Am I spiritual?" Amazing.
What could have been your mother's answer? I really like it.
My mother's answer was what most of us have read. I don't know who it is ascribed to initially. She told her that you are spiritual being having a human experience.
Yeah.
That is why I say, pay attention to the silent ones. They have much to offer you in that silence. here today, gone tomorrow. But we act as if we will live forever and carry our grudges with us, our resentments. Anyone wants to share anything or ask anything?
I have a question. So I've been listening to Ramesh and you on YouTube. Live in US. So someone shared one of your scripts of destiny, and that is how the journey started. Many gurus I met, and since last 25 years, met so many people and all that. Your teachings have given me peace. So I realized that I have to have deep grooves of the teaching. So, because I just love it. That is the way I want to live my life, very calm and peaceful. So now what happens, because I listen to it so often, that when events happen, as soon as the drama starts or any emotion arises, the teaching comes. It's a script. It's so funny. The tear stops here. And it's totally like gnata bhav ke, where am I going? But why it doesn't happen before or as soon as it starts? It happens in after couple minutes or so. I'm very blessed that it comes.
Absolutely.
I'm so blessed that it comes. And just loving it. But I want it even closer.
Of course, because even that much has given you so much relief.
Absolutely.
And that is because it doesn't come immediately for one reason. There's years and years and years of conditioning which is hardwired. It's going to take time. You see, the teaching is like fresh conditioning. It really appeals to you. It makes sense. Now the thing is, in daily living, it must be total. But it takes time because the old conditioning has to be overridden. Or you may find sometimes it comes immediately, other times it doesn't. Even that can happen.
That is true.
Because then our core issues are going to take longer to get resolved.
And in that time, at that time, with the very close family members, my mind keeps saying, it's script. And the ego keeps saying, should not have done whatever the chatter keeps on going. And the other side keeps on saying, it's a script. So you are absolutely right. Even though the script part keeps coming, the other part is not ready to give in.
Yes.
So that is
a habit.
It's a habit.
But then, one thing can happen, like in Sunil's case, once he mentioned that a sibling you don't get along with, suppose, for a long time, you may just find yourself, hey, let's go and have a chai, which earlier you may not have. You see, because now there's an opening that you realize the script is there, you realize your own script is going on, but now something has changed. That there is something to this relationship beyond our scripts. The person is here, I am here. Let me enjoy the person's good points. And not just that, let me allow this person to express themselves the way they are. And I have my chai and enjoy it. Isn't it?
True, absolutely. Right.
And when I cannot just give in, sometimes, that also then I tell myself, okay, that is also scripted.
Yeah.
So then it becomes so calming. Day passes by. So if I keep listening to Ramesh or you or whomever, both of you, more and more will give me what I am looking for, or that is also scripted?
It is also scripted. Someone may listen to this once and doesn't need to listen to it all the time. Someone may need, but there's one important thing here. Listen only if you enjoy listening.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't do it out of like, I need a result, I need a goal, so this is my tapasya.
No.
And I hate listening to this guy, but chalo, ye bhi karna hai.
No, every time I listen, I find 3-4 such powerful sentences that just go so deep within.
What is your name?
Shilpa.
Shilpa. Shilpa, I went for 10 years to my teacher and I wasn't really attentively listening, honestly. But destiny, when I met him, after a month or so, I knew I'd be there till his last breath. Now, he was 83 when I met him. He passed away at 92. At 83, I had no idea I would be with him for over 9 years. But even though I was not listening attentively, at least that's what I thought, I would pick up things in each satsang. I would go only on Sundays. So something new would emerge, and it's like another sparkle kind of a thing. That's what happened over time for me. Till I realized that somewhere down the line, it had become my default setting. I didn't know when that was. I could not pinpoint that. But I kind of knew that this transition had happened. So, if you would like to listen, by all means listen. As long as you're enjoying it. The day you feel it's too much, stop it for some time. Just go with the flow, And don't be too hard on yourself.
Thank you.
Just to add to what Shilpa ji was just said, and the default setting Gautam mentioned to Shilpa ji. I met Gautam in Jan this year, first time in my life.
I was here at that time. You were sitting here.
Giving a long lecture. Lengthy, 20 minutes.
That was the first time mine was here. You were sitting in the back.
So that was both our first time.
Yeah.
And did you say, oh God, this guy is going on?
I mentioned in one of the subsequent things that now when I see that YouTube, when I went on for 15 minutes, I feel embarrassed. But
You couldn't help it.
I couldn't, it was an outburst.
I couldn't help it.
It was a snowstorm. You tried your best, but you couldn't hit to it. Anyway, the thing to add to Shilpa ji's views on how it gives you peace. And there's this, you mentioned this side talking and that side explaining, this side understanding the chatter. And then you spoke about default setting that, so something struck me. I think I'm very fortunate. I was pretty messed up. I told you about that history. And the first time I came, I spoke a lot. In my case, I'm so lucky, I'm so fortunate. And it's happened very naturally. There's no force, there's no pressure, there's no there's no sort of practice I follow. I may not see Gautam one day. One day I'll see 6 shows. That's kind of irregularity, I'm being honest. But that huge excitement I mentioned in between, there was an excitement that I have landed on the day I came here. There was excitement and I was talking and talking and talking, and the chatter was chatter and chatter and chatter. And then in between I mentioned what you said, default setting. I'm such a lucky human or a human being, that this default setting was put in on mode in 3, 4, 5 months. It's my good luck, it's my good fortune, it's my destiny. There's no chatter. I even mentioned in between now, sometime 2, 3 months ago. Now the excitement is in silence.
Beautiful.
Now the excitement is in silence. There's no chatter, there's nothing.
Actually, the ultimate sentence you have just
This is just the excitement in just being silent. This one is shouting, that is going wrong there. Business, this is going wrong. That site in Africa is not doing too well. Okay. It's okay. Next thing, you keep that attitude and everything starts correcting itself. The excitement isn't just being silent about it in the mind. You take your actions, I call up, I try to correct things over the phone, this, that, explain to my staff. No worry, no fretting, no chatter, no mental chatter. It went very early for me in my case. It just happened. It is nothing I really made an effort to do. It happened. Thank you.
First time?
First time. I have come with Mr. Sangam Gupta.
Acha, he dragged you here or you came?
No. He has been mentioning to me many times, and I have, I think it was scripted for me to come today, is what I can say. But yeah, I'm very fortunate to be here, and I've also been very fortunate as a human being because my father, he passed away at 5. But after that, I've been in the company of a lot of, I would say, spiritual masters, and I've been very fortunate and blessed for that. So I have 2 questions. The first one is like you mentioned about Sattva in the beginning. I just wanted to understand what that means. And I understand that Shilpa and Sunil ji have been coming here for some time. And so like for example, one reads so many books, has so many priorities, responsibilities, business, family, and all. What are these probably, I don't know, 1 or 2 conscious actions that one can take to move towards? I know it will take some time to get to the default setting, but probably to move towards the default setting. And like you said, you explained very beautifully about Satsang is the truth, so to be there.
So regarding Sattva, you know there are the 3 gunas, right? Sattva, Tamas and Rajas. So it's a quality. To just simplify it, it's a quality. So some people have a sattvic quality to them. By and large, they are not excitable. They are not lazy. They have a certain quality. Rajasic people are very active. So it just means that, right? More importantly, if in a nutshell, you wanted 2 pieces of advice, you see, this was a very practical lineage of householder gurus. They were not in caves. They were dealing with the world, dealing with relationships. My teacher would sum it up in just 2 sentences. A total acceptance of the will of God and the fact that nobody is the doer of their actions.
It's the same thing, right?
Exactly. But when you try to apply it, you can see how
Yes.
when people are pushing your buttons, the second sentence will kick in. You see, what does this mean, a total acceptance of the will of God? People have a problem with the word God also. It only points to that so far it was my will. This me which thinks it's in charge of its life and in control. So when one says the total acceptance of the will of God, the focus is shifting from the me to a force other than me trying to control my life. So I try my best in a situation with all good intentions, but now I accept whatever is meant to happen happens. So then the grip of the me, this tense, tight thing of controlling people, situations, myself, starts releasing. Because there's more and more acceptance and acceptance and acceptance. I don't feel the need to interfere so much anymore in God's play. Because I am just a piece, like the other pieces. Earlier I thought I was the center. God knows best. Yet, I may find if I feel like expressing myself, I express myself. But thereafter, I don't keep expressing myself. I don't keep repeating something to someone. That need drops away. I say it once, okay. Very practical. Absolutely practical.
So my name is Venkatesh. I'm coming from Pune. It's for the second time I'm here. My friend Ramanathan introduced me actually. So
Ramanathan from South India?
South India. We were friends, and we were living in Bangalore. So then he introduced me, and I shifted to Pune in the last 3 months, and then this very thing I thought I'll come and visit Satsang, and great experience actually. So I have a question. I think more importantly, like when we are in this corporate life or even in the whatever the life we are living, some actions we are actually taking or maybe doing. Though I'm trying to understand that I'm not doing, but finally it's all as per the God's will. Sometimes we end up in some sort of hate. It means like by doing some actions, though you are in some responsibility or doing it, you think, but you end up in an action which is not lovable, or maybe something like where you don't like, the other person doesn't like. So this practice of understanding, I don't know, maybe like by these actions should be like, what I'm thinking is like, maybe is it better when we isolate ourselves more and more and maybe not acting in sometimes? Is it better? Or
No, when you say hate, are you referring to you hating someone or someone hating you as a result of your action?
like that. So means like I do something in my responsibility, which I think, but maybe somebody doesn't like it.
Yes. So what happens then? Because I cannot control someone's reaction to what I say or do, right? When that happens, regret may arise that, oh, my action led to this person hating me. Regret may arise, but there will be no guilt or shame because I didn't mean it. I said what I thought was right based on my conditioning, my filters, my programming. But in this instance, someone ended up hurt or hating me. So there will be no guilt or shame because deep down I know I am not the doer of my actions. And more importantly, nor is the other. That was meant to happen. Now with this understanding, I may go up to this person and say, hey, look here, I didn't mean to. You've taken it this way and I'm sorry about this. So you'll be open to a dialogue should it arise. So it's not about being isolated. This understanding does not isolate you. It just allows you to see the emotion arising in the other or yourself through a different perspective. It is not about isolation. How can we are living in a society in the midst of relationships. We have to have functional relationships. It is not a form of escapism. In fact, it's an immersion. So there might be some misunderstanding or misconception here.
Okay, Gautam. Actually, though I think, trying to learn from your teachings, it's like though to see the life as a drama, and maybe that experience is only coming not at the moment. Like maybe Shilpa ji said, I think it's coming after 2 minutes. For me, it's maybe coming after coming back in the evening.
That is fine. For some people, it will come after 2 days. It happens. But if it is about hating oneself, that is also an indulgence of the ego. Because now I know I have someone to hate, in which case it is myself. You see, it's an identity. Now I have something to do as the ego. Now I can hate myself. Wow.
Ego always wants to do control.
But when I truly see God made me the way I am, it does not mean there are no consequences of my actions. I have to face them. But I know what happened to me in childhood, I had no control over. nor did the other. That is why Rameshji would say, all I ask, I don't say love everyone. He was not fond of the word love, because the love people referred to was the polar opposite of hate, the polarity. So he said, all I ask is don't hate anyone. So if the understanding deep down is consciousness is all there is, whom will you hate? Can consciousness hate itself? So, I would make bold to say, if you can live without hate, that is enlightened living. Because it means your living is no longer polarized. You are living above the pairs of opposites, as Goldsmith would say. Dominic here has been my friend since Ramesh's time. He used to visit Ramesh with his wife Chantal at least 2-3 times a year. So, if Dominic can say in a few words his relationship with Ramesh, I think we'd all benefit from it and what he learned. Before that, he was with Osho.
Long story, so. Yeah. Oh, what do I do?
No,
just speak.
So speak. Long story, so I couldn't. Just came in my mind as first as a very nice, peaceful atmosphere here. That's what I felt. It was the first thing, and it's going on very well. Just and the second thing make me remember. Ramesh was saying once like that, before he was enlightened, before he met Nisargadatta, he said he was a banker with a high level, and he said, I used to receive my visitor, my big client, especially the guy were not very happy with me, were strong with me. He was not facing him behind his deck, but he was sitting with him, with the client beside him. He already has the spirit of not being against, but being with. And even if the relation was not good, but it's a way to go and not to be against. And it's a way to do. And for me, it's what is Advaita. The first thing is, for me, Advaita and has been a meeting, especially with Ramesh. When the disciple is ready, the master appears. And it was true. It has been like that. Instantly, it was my master. But to meet his master is not enough. So it took maybe 6 years or 7 years to be with him. And that kind of huge, to want to be news, to get something, and Ramesh was not taking, didn't take anything on that demand, but just, and just before it was in January 2009, I knew he was dying. And the huge, because he was always repeating, if you have a question to ask, just ask me, because I'm not going to be there for a long time. and it was me. Enlightenment didn't give me any power, any different thing. It just gave me peace. Only that. And I'm not different of what I am. It's not. Sometimes Ramesh was very strong, you know, it was very sharp. And it was Ramesh, it was nothing. And I remember I heard it was a costume habits to give money, to make donation to Ramesh. And myself, I wasn't the way to say, I'm here to spiritual matter, not to give money. No. And Wayne helped me a lot with just a little sentence. I said, I don't want to give money to Ramesh. And he said, but Ramesh is a banker. He loves money. And is what is acceptance. You know, there is no God and human being. There is no, it's all the same thing. It's the same thing. Ramesh was a banker. And so I started giving money. And he liked me very much. And I was happy what he liked. So the urge came by and by, better and better. And it came so strongly that it happens, I don't tell the details, but it happens, suddenly peace happened by itself. Enlightened, not enlightened, I don't care, I don't mean anything, it's not mine. But peace happened, and peace happened already many times in my life. With Bhagwan Rajneesh, it happened many times. Even when I was young, it happens very, very, very much. What happens? Yeah, beauty of the thing happened, but it's closed, it's finished. And now when it happens, I knew it was finished completely. So peace happened, and I can say I live in peace, but I'm still the same. I'm not a good person. You know, sometimes I'm a very shitty person. And I can be, you know, very strong on people, but it's what I am. And I accept it. That's all. That's what I wanted to say to you.
Thank you.
To my dear Ramesh.
Yes, Dipesh. Anything to say?
As Dominic said, I accept the way I am, and I am a shitty person. Sometimes I get more strong. But yeah, and that's very true to accept. Yeah, because what it so happens that when a person he tries to improve himself, it's somewhere on the line that he tries to polish his ego. So instead of trying to improve, it's better to accept the way you are. That would be much more peaceful than to polish our ego.
But now what about others accepting the way you are?
Yeah, that's after accept you polishing your ego.
The way others, that is how they are going to accept at the way of their conditioning, as you say. The moment we try to polish ourselves, to try to improve ourselves in the eyes of others, is that we are not accepting ourselves the way we are?
Could be. But more importantly, we cannot discount this, Dipesh. You see, there is a quest to be a better person, right? The only misconception is what is this definition of a better person? That is the misconception. So, there's nothing wrong in trying to work on ourselves. You know, this is looked down upon in certain Advaita circles, but this is actually quite natural, right? If you for yourself have identified certain habits, traits, characteristics, You can try to work on yourself and see what happens. The suffering is when we want to force an outcome. But that is why Ramesh would say, do precisely that which you think and feel you should do for yourself. Some people are of the nature to work on themselves, others are not of that nature. It's not a one size fits all. So that is what the pointer is.
So when that question of acceptance arises, when we totally give up, now it's not in my control, then we accept the way it is, or first with the prior understanding.
It is this. Knowing that things are not in my control, I do precisely that which I think and feel I should do, as if I am the doer.
I would put it in a symbol if I can.
Mm-hmm.
Above the mind, surrender. When it's above the mind, just surrender to God of your choice.
You see, another important point is if we are repeating patterns, then these patterns being repeated are providing us an opportunity to look at the patterns.
Sorry?
If we are repeating a pattern, let's say with a particular person, and we are aware we are repeating the pattern, it is the pattern itself which is providing us the opportunity to look at why this pattern is happening. So that could also be called working on myself, isn't it? I am repeating the pattern all the time with so and so. So if I say so be it, that will keep happening. But if I investigate, as he would say, is it based on doership? What is it based on? Then I find my own answers. My own revelations come. So that kind of working on oneself, what is wrong with that?
But then that is doership in it, right?
You could say so, but the problem is when it is an enforced doership, which creates suffering for myself as well as others. Now, for example, Bhagwan said, the only practice is who am I? Then you could say, even saying who am I is doership. It is a sadhana he has given. It is an internal sadhana. Ramesh ji would say, look at all actions until you are convinced one action in the day is your action. That is a sadhana. And the simple example he would give is, let's say you helped someone across the street and you say that was my action. I helped the person across the street. The point is, if that person was not there, your action would not have happened. So is it truly your action? So that was Ramesh's sadhana he gave people. So you could call that doership, but that is the sadhana. Otherwise, I can keep living a life of suffering. This is the journey of awareness.
And that doership can be also destined or script for in that moment.
Absolutely. Everything is.
So just improving ourselves could be the sadhana or the scripted.
Sure. Only now the understanding is, what is the objective? The objective, so to speak, is peace of mind. It is not a goal to get somewhere, attain something other than peace. And if in that process I am creating suffering for myself or others, then something is amiss. Imagine the quest is for peace and I'm creating suffering, which the ego loves to do. The ego loves to suffer. The ego loves to suffer, and the ego loves to make others suffer along with it. That is why Osho said that if you are happy, there's a problem, because then people will try to make you unhappy because they are unhappy. He was referring to women. He said, when women find out they can't make me happy because I'm already happy, then they say, okay, let's make him unhappy. At least that much we can do. He would say that. The ego loves, an unhappy ego loves to make others unhappy. An unhappy ego loves to make others unhappy. I'm going to say it once more. An unhappy ego loves to make others unhappy.
So in that case, if you want to move ahead in life, as in survive in this life, what you said, isn't it we can change ourselves in the sense when we see someone hurting us, most of the cases they are very hurt. So let's not reciprocate with the same intensity towards them, and let's be nice. We might feel hurt in that case, but somehow some mysterious power takes care of everything, I've observed.
Great. Means no matter what you do, a mysterious power takes care of everything.
And maybe our mind is conditioned, but it also makes you believe it and surrender. Like it's good. Like you might feel sometimes a lot of challenges come and a lot of suspicion comes towards it, but things just work out for the good and bad. Obviously we are only giving meaning to it, but it works out for the good. That's what I've observed.
The good,
For the greater good, yeah.
not necessarily for me.
Yeah.
That is the acceptance. So far it has been things work out for me. Now you know there is a greater good, there's a larger picture, and things work out, full stop. In some cases, they may not be in my favor, in other cases they may be. I have now not made any demands on God that they should all work out in my favor.
Yes, in continuation to what Shilpa was saying about the doership, one example which I'd like to share is, so I consciously try to get up early in the morning. That is one conscious action which I perform, because I know that after 8:39, when my entire family wakes up, before that, the only time, that is the time which I have to, probably find the peace and generate that peace which I can have throughout the day. So that is an action which is being done consciously, but then I don't take it as doership because it helps me to improve the relationships overall.
It's a very good thing to do.
Another question.
Your me time, the quiet time in the mornings, before the world invades.
Yes, and another question which I had in regards to time is only like I read once in Osho's book that when you go beyond time is when you experience divine, and when you go beyond the ego, you experience the soul. But I want to know that how do you go, beyond time?
Even I want to. This early morning thing, I habitually wake up early morning. And 20 years ago, I had two people who were my advisors, Katie and Rohit. Katie was a very multi-dimensional personality. She would do healings and she was in all these esoteric arts. So we concluded that Katie and Rohit were both sleeping when I was waking up. So I was waking up at 4:30 and they were going to sleep at 4:30. And they said they did their best work in the night. And I could never work in the night. I did my best work in the early morning. And there I had it, like two people immersed in the life spiritual, but polar opposites. Their 12 midnight till 4 p.m. was their quiet time and mine was 4 a.m. Amazing how different people are made, So I was telling them once that I told Katie, I said, you must have been an owl in your past life. So Rohit said, I was no owl, I must have been a vampire. So it works differently for different people.
Correct. So I'll probably rephrase my question, because the same thing happens in my household. Because my say wife is with the kids all day, the only me time and the time she gets to work on our business also is at night. Post 11 months, everyone has gone to sleep and I wake up in the morning. So throughout the course of the day, when I'm doing my work, when I'm dropping my kids to school, that how do we at that time stay in touch with the divine? Because one activity, third activity, fifth activity follows, and then gone, whoosh, the day is gone. So how do you...
But that is precisely what this teaching says. The activity is the meditation. What Sri Aurobindo would say, the same thing. Meditation, sadhana, me time, okay, of course we all need that pocket. But what happens during the day? And this is how practical the teaching is. That look at the events in the day, look at the people you meet, and see whether your working mind is engaged or your thinking mind. Working mind has to be engaged if you're living in a family, with society, with people. Or our story is developing all the time, which means your focus is not on the task at hand, but rather you are living in an imaginary future or dead past, which 90% of humanity is doing. Otherwise, there'll be a disconnect. There will be my me time, my practice, and oh God, the rest of this tamasha. And this is a life, living, it's called living the teachings. There's a role to play. There's a karmic obligation to fulfill. In that fulfillment, do I have sukha shanti? Do I have my peace of mind? Or is my mind full of complaints? Is my mind full of resentment towards God, maybe? Why are you doing this to me? What is the content of my mind? While I am engaged in what the day brings to me. That is the sadhana.
Can I ask you just one thing? Did Ramesh ever talk about karma?
Not in there.
Yeah, because I listened so many of his.
That is why, because there are so many concepts about karma, and he say karma in its purest form means action. Karma means action, not my action. So he would not dive deep into this topic.
No, but like rinanubandhan, if someone is misbehaving with you, then you must have done some bad karma with them in a past life. Yes. He never talked about, I have never heard him saying all that. He did not. Right?
No, absolutely not. He was not considering past lives or future lives in his teaching.
Yeah.
He didn't go down that road.
He's just
Yeah, sure. Rinanubandhan, the cosmic debt of a former relationship. I love that word. Because some relationships don't make sense.
True. But understanding that has implications to get peace of mind, right?
Of course.
So
Now that was the Rinanubandhan was the tenet of Sai Baba's teachings.
Yes.
You see, because different traditions have different definitions of the word ego. For example, one tradition says the ego dies with the body. Finished. The other tradition says, no, the ego continues birth from birth. So if we try to cross-pollinate masters and their teachings, we are going to get confused. Because what is the ego? Some traditions say the ego is the bundle of the vasanas and sanskaras, which are unresolved. So after the body is dropped, that will keep continuing, albeit in a separate body. So you see, there are different concepts. The point is that they are unresolved vasanas and sanskaras. Unresolved. And this teaching says Let's resolve it here and now.
Yeah, so just to share, like, this is my second time. And last time when I came, I sensed a very deep kind of silence. Very, very deep. Like, all questions, everything just for a while disappeared. So that's something I wanted to share. I had never experienced that before. I don't know what word love means, but something around that, like that space is what I experienced. My question is related to what he said actually, that in my busy day, I do need those interventions, quiet, when I just sit with my cup of coffee and I'm just like switch off. Like it's, like he said, this world is my mind or created by my mind. So if I just remember that sentence,
Sure.
it just goes away. So there are some moments when but then it comes back.
That's the nature of the mind. But this is a nice practice. Even Joel Goldsmith would say that every half an hour remind yourself of the infinite invisible. Because we are so immersed in doership and the mundane, we need that reminder.
They say the world is created.
And you must be having a good coffee brand, I think.
Something to do with my coffee in the morning as well.
So this sentence that the world is created by your mind, like I even sense it sometimes, like I want to do it, I do it. Not sure if there's doership there, but I can see it.
Sure.
Otherwise we'd be dead without the mind.
So if we are doing it, then we can also reverse it. Or not we, as in when we realize that, okay, I'm only creating it. I think just that thought sort of helps it to vanish for some time.
Could be, but you see, we are not doing things. Things are being done through us. That becomes the understanding.
Yes.
It appears I'm doing it because this is the realm of phenomenality. This is the realm of doing things. Arjuna had to pick up his bow and arrow and fight. He was the doer. But because he took charge of that and said, I am the one doing it, that is when Krishna said, hey, hold on. I have shaped everything. Your conditioning to be a warrior, your instincts. You are just the instrument through whom an action will happen and they will be killed. So on one level, Arjuna is still the doer. But now the understanding is, I am the instrument through whom the action will happen. That is the shift which happens. I must act as if I am the doer. I have daily living to deal with. That does not go away. But the understanding comes, I am now not living my life, but rather life is being lived through me. And that coffee break makes me relax and rest because there's no doership. So to just abide in my being becomes easy, preferable sometimes.
So like you said, it's about living the teaching. So how do you get it even in your actions? And
so you have to do precisely that which you think and feel you should do till you realize that now I no longer need to live the teachings because I am being lived by the teaching. And that silence you felt here, make no mistake, you felt within yourself. Which means, even when you're away from here, it is there. It just became an opening for you to feel it here. But that is felt within yourself. That is the death of the thinking mind. And that will never go. Your fear is, what if it does not happen again? But you didn't do the first happening in any case. You had no idea that if you came here, you would go into silence, did you? It was not your doing. So you can't keep wanting to do it. You can't do silence.
I want to say something about you.
About me?
So, many years ago, about 8-10 years ago, I was in a very difficult situation. My husband was very, very unwell. In fact, he was in the hospital for about 2 months, and they felt that he was not going to make it unless and until he had a liver transplant. And the situation deteriorated very quickly. It so happened that I was a good match for his liver, and I was designated as the donor. I did a lot of testing and all, and they said you can go in, you can be the one. But there was a lot of fear inside me. I was very frightened. I had a very small child. It's a very, very major, it's one of the supra surgeries. His surgery was going to last 12 hours. Mine was going to last 8 hours. And I was very frightened about it, whether I would come out of it okay, whether he would be alive, whether I would not be compromised, because I had such a small child to look after. So I was very frightened, and there wasn't family pressure, but there was family expectation, because it was a time wherein the situation had deteriorated so fast. There was nobody else who could come forth. Nobody else came forth, and you couldn't wait for a cadaver donor or anything, because that would take ages. So it was a very tumultuous situation. And I remember one day, I came here to meet him, and I remember he said one thing to me. I was like, I couldn't understand what he was saying half the time. So he said to me, he says, I said, I'm feeling so much guilt that I'm not coming forward for him, and everybody's thinking, and my family is thinking, and his family is thinking, that must be thinking, how come she's not coming forward and all. And he said, listen, you have to honor yourself. If you're frightened, it's okay. You have to honor yourself. So I heard it, but I didn't pay much attention to it. And the day came when the surgery, because we couldn't extend it. The doctor said that, look, if you have to do it, you have to do it today, or else it's over. There's a particular time that it can happen in. So the day came, and I got admitted into the hospital. I had to do testing. I had to sign so many papers, legalities, because an organ transplant under certain sections of the law is something. From the hospital also, you have to sign like a bunch. If this happens, then we'll have to redo the surgery. If this happens, we'll have to open you up again. It was just signing and reading those papers. I was like freaking out. And then suddenly the door opened, and he came to visit me. This was the night before the surgery. And he sat with me for some time and everything. And I was just like messed up in the head and all. And then he said, okay, now I'm going. And when he was leaving, he gave me a hug. And I was like all weepy and teary-eyed, because the next day was this whole thing and all. And he just said to me, he said, God is the only one who can give someone else life. Here, you have an opportunity to give someone else a life. And when he said that, again, I didn't pay much attention. But after I said, okay, bye-bye and all, and he left. And then when I sat by myself, that sentence sort of remained with me, And till then I was feeling so low and angry, upset, guilty, frightened. All those emotions sort of moved away, and this thought stayed with me. I said, oh my God, I never thought of myself like that I may be able to do this. And that empowered me. Then I didn't go into the surgery. The next morning when the call came, like, now you have to go, I didn't go in like some frightened person. I went with a little bit of equanimity, And then when I came out of surgery also, it remained in my head. The few months later also, what he had said and everything, it stayed with me. And my recovery was superb. In 3 months after such a major surgery, I was on the treadmill. And a year later, I even did a marathon. So I just wanted to say that it really, really, though that one sentence of his was so transformative, that during such a scared time in my life, and yeah, I'm a total wuss, I can't even take an injection. To do a organ transplant, so I was like freaking out, it was.
But I don't even remember.
You don't remember. And it was at the exit, You said, okay, I'm going now. So then I got up from the bed and I went to the door and I hugged you and I was a little teary-eyed, and then you just said this. You said, it's a great thing, that only God can give life to other people. Here you are going to be able to give life to someone. And that was so empowering. I was like, oh my God, I never thought of myself like that. I was all the time only just signing papers, or this, or that. Exactly, it empowered me. So my recovery was very good. So I just let go. I said, what you all need to do with my body, you all do. I'm putting my mind into only now recovery, how I can come out of this and be there for my child. How many marathons have you done? I've done 2. Really? But long back now. Now I'm the opposite. No only mental marathons.
Thanks for sharing that. Very touching.
Yeah.